turn it over now to Mr. Thomas, who has a demo of um, how to take your storyboard. Once you get to that point, how to take your storyboard and start turning it into an actual scratch story. You guys remember last week that let me make this presenter real quick. You guys remember that last week we went over some of the key code blocks that you can use when you're building your scratch story. If you need a refresher on those, um, we have a new video posted to the Ministers Conference's YouTube channel. So go check that video out. It's all about using the code blocks in Scratch. It's uh, it's a portion of the meeting that we did last week, but it'll help you remember what types of code blocks will be useful when making your story and which ones you should use. So I'm going to go ahead and make Mr. Thomas the presenter now so he can show you how he started to take the storyboard that Griot Meekins put together and convert it into a scratch story.
Okay, awesome. So let me just bring up the share here. Okay. All right. So yep. So what I did was we took Griot Meekins' storyboard, and I'm just going to I'm actually going to go ahead and play it before we go into all of the detail. And so it's not quite complete yet. It's in the, I would say, the maybe the first four or five of those points. If you look at the storyboard, and that's sort of the purpose of storyboards, is to have those sort of what they call beats within the story, and you want to hit each and every one of each and every one of those beats um, within it to be able to have your story have basically a order about it. So this, let's go ahead and play it. I'm going to take my headset out, that way be able to hear the sounds that would add it as well. Okay. Help me. All right. Okay. All right. So that is where we left off. um, but as you can see, if we go back to, let me bring up the PowerPoint to the storyboard here.
Oh,
As you can see.
share out your whole screen, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. All right. Can everybody see? Okay, I want to explain that with Caleb. Um, so right now, in terms of our progress, we hit this point here, point 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to say the first 5. So we have the last 3 points to do, and so if I go back to Scratch, right? So like we talked about setting up your backgrounds. So I have 3. Oh, and I can kind of hide him for a moment. That's okay. um, so it started here, of course, with in the little park area, and then our second scene. See, he's still there. What you can do is in coding, you can go in and you can go in and remember our code where here in looks where you can take an object and hide it. It's let me see. It's usually set for the sprites. It's one of the features. So yeah, so if I go to hide, it will hide this figure here. But we'll keep him right there in the middle of the lake for a moment. And then our third scene. So what you may even do is when you first start your story, set up all of the settings for each one of those scenes. Now it might take place in the same in the same setting, and what you can do is you can kind of repeat it over and over again. But what I wanted to do first was I was like, okay, well, in order to hit those 3 points, I wanted to get those first three scenes or those first settings set up first before I go in and start adding any type of coding, adding the characters and how they'll move within that space. Okay? And then after I had my three scenes, now you can set different sound effects. You can set within the setting or the character or the sprites we call them. So the because it's raining all the time, what I did was a oh what was the question that you had again, Caleb? The about the oh how to say help me, right? So we'll go into that in a minute. But what I did was I set the sound setting, which is one of our tabs that we talked about last week. Quarantine. Okay. um, but we went to our sound settings and everything. We have like a stock sound where you can choose, and I was able to find a thunderstorm sound just right in the settings. Right, storm. I don't know if you can hear that. And I set that on in the coding, and I went here to a permanent loop. So in control, you have this tab here called forever. And so once that flag clicks, you'll hear it go out throughout the all of the entire story because it's going to be raining constantly. Okay. Right, I'll stop there. Okay, so this is our first scene here, and this is our first sprite. So this is Megan walking in and through getting ready to go home from the birthday party. As you can see, this is her coding here. So when that flag, that go button starts, it shows her. And it's kind of a good way to remember. So when this goes, it shows, and then it this is where she is at the start of the scene. This is where she's going in the scene, and this is what she says in the scene. So, as Grio Meekins was saying, well, we have our setting, we have the character established. We're showing our character. we are giving her a purpose of okay, what is she doing in the scene, or where is she going? She's leaving a birthday party on her way home. And then what does she say within that scene? So now we have a little bit of a monologue or dialogue, either with a character or between characters. Okay. Now she's getting, if we show her again, she's getting ready to use her ability because we now know she has a superpower. And we made that as a thought bubble. Oh, stop. What was that sound? She has super hearing, so she heard the car crash. She's getting ready to go back. She flies down. Help me. Okay. Now, someone had a question about our friend here. Now, I set this within the scene. So on this third backdrop, stop this because you because we have this on a constant loop here forever. It's going to keep creating that sound of rain and the thunderstorm. So if I go here to backdrops to this third scene, we can go to the coding of it. Let's see. Actually, you know what? I did set it on him. No, I set it on this one here. Okay. So when she's flying back, she's to help him in the car crash. You see the sound where it says "Help me." If we go to sounds, and you can set this up within, the different any sprite. You can set it up on the actual sprite as well, in terms of coding. So I created a file. If I go, if you go here to choose a sound, that microphone there means record. So if I press that, you see that the orange button comes up, and you could press like say, "Hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." And hit stop, and you can play your sample. Say, "Hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." Okay. You can save that, and that'll be our recording. You can go up here. You can rename it. And you can also modify your sounds. So if I can slow it down, I say, "Hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." I say, "Hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." I say, "Hello." I say, "Hello." I say, "Hello." I say, "Hello." I say, "Hello. Please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." You can reverse it. I'm slowing it down. So if you like Caleb, you have a story that's on a different planet. So you can have an alien come up to one of your characters and you know talk to him in a different language. But if you turn it back around, say, "Hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped." That's what it means. But that's just a few examples of that. In terms of the coding of it, you see, I have it inserted. I could actually take this. If I was to duplicate it, I could copy it and paste it onto the actual character saying it. But it's fine. It works either way within the scene because that's where she's going anyhow. And I can go here up to this little tab because I have two sounds on there now. I have multiple sounds. I could go in and I can go and pick either one. So if I were to just, and this is another thing too, another tip. You don't have to hit play and go all the way back to the beginning to hear your samples. You could just click on your little starting tab, your event tab, and you will be able to sample it. Say hello, please help me. I'm in the car. I'm trapped. But I prefer the original. I can hear it again. Ah, help me! All right. Okay. Let's see. So going back to our character sprites, this is the first one. The sound. Which sound? Um, to be able to answer that question. I know it was the was you so you mean the thunderstorm or the the help me? Yep. Yeah. So just I was saying, like with the recording, when you go to sound, I'll go back to it again for a moment. You go to sound, the little sound tab, and you go down here where it says choose a sound, and you go up to up here to record, and you'll be able to push that orange record button, and you could create dialogue. For example, for those of you who were here for the orientation, you saw our sample, and you can still see it. It's still up on our page. We'll make sure to send a link to you guys of our scratch page, the Journey to Space demo that we did, and that's how I was able to narrate the story. It was just for each scene, I was able to just press record here, and I quickly jotted it down, and then multiple characters the same way. So basically, you have within the scene each movement and everything. So when this is clicked, I can say a message, and this is all so it's down here. So you can record them and save them as or write things down as a message. And when that message is broadcasted, this is going a little bit more in depth um, for our purposes, but just a little tip. When you broadcast a specific message that you assign, it you can trigger a sound, or you can trigger more dialogue up here in the look section. You can put one of your purple tabs in, or you can go down to sound to the light purple and plug in a actual sound effect. And that's how you're able to create like dialogue with multiple characters in a scene. And we'll have it's can you make your own person make your own sprites? Yes, you can. Um, it takes a lot of time, and so that's why for the purpose of the class and for what we're doing, got to give you guys a general idea of the functions of Scratch. We like to use the either the stock characters, the characters that's already in the program, or what you can do is you can go on to Google and search for actual sprites. That's where I found Megan, this character that I'm using to represent her. Um, Somebody made all of these sprites, and if I could show you, um, basically her. Okay. So these are basically all of. I don't know if can you see this this is my file with all the documents, and so they designed this sprite for the purpose of like to be used in a game. And so these are all of her assets or all of her different movements. So she has like 20 different animations for just to just jump, or she has like 10 different, or no, she has let's see, 20 different animations just for running. Her running animation requires 20 different images. So it's just like animation in that. The Where it's like multiple cells, and they take, cell by cell, old school animation where they take cell by cell and they create motion. I know some of you probably have done that, where you take like the little what's that, the little post-it notes, and you and you like you make the stick figure movement by movement, flip books. Yep. And then you flip the book and you can see it in motion. And so that's exactly how that works, except it's a little bit more detailed. um Even in, like, if you play some of the 2D games like Mario or Zelda or something like that, like a Nintendo or Sega Genesis or something. Sonic is a good example, like we showed last week. Um, he had that it was one animation, but it consisted of 4 or 5 different movements, or in this case, we're using costume changes. So when I do that play button, this is her walking animation. This is 10 images right here, all on its own. And then when she changes into the flight, that's another 10 images right there. Yeah. Yep. So right, exactly. So as Mr. Will said in the chat, each movement is a costume, and I can actually show you guys that. So yep. So if I was to just click, you can kind of see the walking animation there. So I used eight out of the 20, because because for that short amount of time where she's walking, because she's going to get ready to fly anyhow to get out of the rain. So all I needed was 8 of them to cycle through, and this is kind of right here is a sample of how you're able to change that, or change the different costumes. And we talked more about that, the functions of those tabs, last week. Okay, right. So, yeah, this is a sample of the jump, and it's best to, like, if you want to create different types of movements within the scene, um, to label each sprite that does that. So, what's happening is in this one, the walking animation or the walking sprite is different from the one when she starts to fly. And the way to do that is, when I started it, I show the first one. After this first sprite does what I have coded it to do, I hit hide. So that's up there in the looks tab, in that dark purple tab. It goes to hide. It hides her, and I could play that again. So it's showing her, it's creating her movement. She's going to say her dialogue. Then this one's going to hide. Now you're seeing jump one's tab. And then jump one does her part. It shows, and then it does makes the teleportation sound of her flying. It glides over into the next scene, and then when that scene turns on, the city with the water, that sprite hides, and it shows this next one, the flight one. And so that creates a flow from scene to scene. Okay. And as you can see, now we're in the city scene with the water front. Now, when that backdrop switches, it switches to this character, and it shows her, shows her movement, where she's going. Exactly. As Mr. Will said, Professor Sanders, he said, you see in the chat room there, it's the same character, but it's four different variations of that character. It is basically to show a flow from scene to scene, a flow of action. Okay. And as you can see, you have the car crash, how much time I want to wait until she, notices it and changes. So that costume switch is right here. So within the flight, I have a costume change with, so she's flying here, she's flying this way, she hears the car crash, and then I have it coded to where once that car crash sounds, it's like there's a wait period. So that's in the control section. Wait 2 seconds on that, and then it's going to switch over to jump one, jump 1-2. And it's so she's flying, car crash. Oh no, what's that? You see, she turns around back in the direction of the car crash, and then gives her dialogue after that. I head back. Someone's in trouble. You hear her flying sound again. Now she's going to move, and that's going to, once she glides to that point, help me. It triggers. I have a control here under looks. It's going to switch. It switches the backdrop to our third scene. And you notice that that character, even though it moved down this way, I put hide there so you can't see her. If I was to take this off, you would be able to see the character there if I once I play that particular motion again. But because I have hide there, you see the one up here. Yep. I just used him as a placement just for demo purposes and just to kind of get at but hopefully by the time of the next week, I'll have some time to make all of the finishing touches and put in some other characters because the next part um is scene 6 of our storyboard. This has the light post. It's crashed there, and there's a crowd of people. So that's what we're getting ready to do now. Is we're gonna have the crowds of people that are gonna come. Megan's gonna come and lift up the light pole, but the people are gonna come and help get our car crash victim out. And After that, we'll be able to go in and we'll have him come in and we can add at the scene after that scene. Let's see, we can oh look, there we go. We gotta there. Oh no. We have a couple of different sounds that we could work with the crowds, gasping at, you know, in suspense, because we like Griomikis was saying, we want to add, our action words, want to add, our feeling, you know, uh, descriptive words, adverbs. Want to add all of these things. Okay. But yep, that's just a sample. And hopefully, like I said, next week we will we'll finish this and hear more from you guys' stories.